This is weird.
The pros and cons of General Superintendent. So,
All right.
Andrew, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the Lean Convo audience.
Yeah, my name is Andrew McLaughlin, and I am a area superintendent for Turner Construction in Houston, Texas.
What does a day-to-day day on the job site look like for you?
Well, right now we're coming up out of the ground, so I'm working with the utilities and the earthwork contractors for the site work portion, and we are beginning underground in the area that I'll be in charge of once we go vertical.
These Lean Convos are for everybody, right? But it's mainly for superintendents out in the field, and then anybody in the office that wants to take the time to really know what goes on in the mind of a superintendent. We are recording this because last week you triggered me, and I say that in jest, right? I don't really get triggered. I'm usually pretty even keel, but I'm a general superintendent. That is my title, and at where you work and other places, the general superintendent role is non-existent. And you made mention of maybe you liking it that way, and I feel like the role of a general superintendent is vital for any mid-level to high-level organization. So, can you just share with the audience why you believe that the role of a general superintendent isn't all that valuable?
Some companies use them as fixers. You know, when you have a project that's gone awry, or it's they're in firefighting mode, they're trying to get across the finish line for whatever reason it is, whether it's a uh, difficult client or schedule challenges or whatever it is. The general superintendent would come in and give a hand. Well, I was listening to one of the Element Construction podcasts the other day. I sent you a picture of it. It was talking about Seagull Management. Do you remember that little topic?
Yeah, I have actually listened to that chapter myself. Go ahead and throw a shout out to Jason Schroeder. I am a broker superintendent, and he does not like broker superintendents. I own it, so it's all good. Shout out to Jason. But talk a little bit about the Seagull management that he was talking about in his book, Elevating Superintendents.
Or you fly in to the job site, then you crap all over everything, and then you fly away. You leave the project team with all that to deal with in your wake.
Basically, Seagull management is you come in, crap on everything, and then leave.
That's correct.
Okay. I've had the privilege of working under several different general superintendents throughout my career, and one reoccurring theme always came to my mind was, if I were ever in the position of the general superintendent, the question I would most likely ask the people that would be reporting to me as far as other superintendents, that question would be, how can I help you? And then after I asked that question, I told myself that I would listen. And then after listening, I told myself that I would take action. Because that was not the normal interaction with the general superintendent that I had. It was more of the Seagull management while I was under general superintendents. And this is a career that spans 20 years, right? But I always would tell myself, okay, if I ever got to that position, I would approach it in this manner. I would listen to those underneath me. I would take action where I could take action and help wherever possible. I do see a general superintendent in an organization as a role of an advocate for the other superintendents and assistant superintendents so they can have a voice with upper management and even ownership of the company, because it's not like a union type situation. There aren't any superintendent unions, but superintendents need help. Superintendents need ears to be able to listen to their challenges and help whenever those challenges do arise, and they need to know that there's someone out there who has their back? Would you be opposed to working with a general superintendent who truly had your best interest in mind?
No, but I don't feel like I need to. I a lot of well, I had two things about what you just said. Like, number one, if you've been in construction 20 years and you've had a lot of interactions with general superintendents who are guilty of Seagull Management, do you feel like that makes you atypical, that you are, you know, trying not to be that way and change the industry? And then number two, what makes, all the things that you just said that you try to do as a general superintendent any different from me getting those same benefits or value from a senior superintendent who I technically and in reality work with and not for? So a senior superintendent, say on another project, who I just like and I'm friendly with and I look up to as a mentor, but that I do not have a reporting relationship with, but that, I maybe call once a week or something like that to discuss what's going on, or even like once a month to talk about my goals or my struggles, or like you said, to vent. What's different between the way a senior superintendent operates and the way a general superintendent operates?
Well, typically, I'll just go back to the typical and the generalities. I think it all gets back down to culture. So, if you and your culture and the reporting structure, if you feel that that support's already given to you, then if it's not broken, why fix it? But I also talk to quite a few superintendents across the country who don't have that outlet, who don't feel like their voice is being heard. And lo and behold, what they have in common is they don't have a general superintendent either, that can fill that void, so to speak. So I think it gets back down to culture and personalities, because someone's challenges can be someone else's fun. I had a conversation with an assistant superintendent who, he's going through it. He's got a lot of responsibilities, but the way that he approaches it, and I let him know, if you approach these same tasks with a mentality where you're embracing everything that you have to do as opposed to letting it be a weight, you're going to be unstoppable. But it's a mental choice. It is a mindset that one has to either, let's go to the extreme, be an Eeyore, like from Winnie the Pooh, and everything is a drag, or you can be like Pollyanna, and I might be dating myself, but Pollyanna, I think it was a movie long time ago, like 50s or 60s or something. But she was always positive about everything, and I'm more Pollyannish than I am Eeyore, but it's by choice. So if a culture is there where the support is there, then maybe that role isn't needed. But what I find is when that role isn't there, a lot of superintendents suffer because they don't have that mentorship. They don't have that structure where they can report to and then have that advocacy. And I'm not saying that when I had general superintendents over me in my past, that they weren't seagulls, because a lot of times they were. And I told myself, well, I'm not going to be like that guy whenever I get into that position. So I think it has a lot to do with experience and mindset. But I do believe that the role of a general superintendent can be very helpful and healthy for an organization if their culture lacks that type of support already. I could talk about GSing and all that stuff, whatever you want to talk about.
No, I used to, before I was a superintendent, I was in a supporting role. And so I was never 100% of the time on a job site. I didn't get a chance to spend enough quality time with the people to be able to develop the relationships that I needed to be able to develop with them to help fix what bugs them, which is a lot of what lean construction is about, right? And and when you say have 10 or 12 projects out of your office, you have a finite amount of time and resources to be able to dedicate to those projects. You're at some point, either through leadership priorities or just through scarcity of time, you're going to be obligated to focus on some more than others. And I think that might be where the Seagull Management situation comes into play, where people, they only have a certain amount of time. They go in, they find 3 things that are wrong, that are opportunities for people to fix, and then they move on to the next project. And if someone doesn't have the approach, like you're saying, of mentorship and having that relationship, things that layer of management of the general superintendent, I think, can get to a point where it's not generating value, right? If the person doesn't have that approach that you do, and if they don't have the skill set and the ability to have that relationship where people will open up to you about what the real problems are and what their struggles are, then that makes it hard to generate value. And if all you are is the superintendent police or the lean police or whatever you want to call it, that makes people tense when you're around. And may even encourage them to put a facade up when you're around, so that they try to make it seem like there are no problems or everything's honky-dory. And it's really hard. That makes it even harder to bring value, because, if you're there to help solve problems and they're doing nothing but covering it up because they have this high-level leader out on their project, that can be difficult, right? So, I can see where, if the approach is to be a mentor and stuff, that could be very beneficial, because as a superintendent, if you're not on a large project where there are multiple superintendents, you're kind of a lone wolf, and so having that support, like you said, whether it's through the culture or through a general superintendent or through senior superintendent, or even just one of your peers who's at the same level as you are, going through the same struggles as you are, being able to vent, having some type of support in your development as a superintendent is really important. And I think that is the greatest opportunity to have value if you are a general superintendent. What do you think about that?
I think we just came to some common ground. I think we agreed to agree, and it's one of those things that if a general superintendent can't stop down and speak to other superintendents or assistant superintendents and have valuable communication, and then it just asks the simple questions of, what can I do to make your job easier? What do you want to learn? Is there any training opportunities you want to move forward with? Those types of things. And, there is value in pointing out things that aren't right, or maybe people get tunnel vision, or they just don't have the experience. And sometimes it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. So I think all things being taken into consideration, there can be real value, and there is real value with the role of a general superintendent. And I'm pretty sure quite a few general superintendents, after watching this, will have their own comments. So really appreciate you taking the time on your drive home to talk with us today. So I throw it on LinkedIn and see what people have to say.
All right, sounds good.
All right, boss man. Appreciate you. Take care.